And welcome back to episode number 39. Boys, we're back from our little bit of a summer break. Uh Raise the banners here, boys. How was the last 3 weeks? Obviously, we got some good Red Sox play, but personally, what were you guys up to the last 3 weeks?
Well, I had Nesson 360, and then I lost it. It was like a test account, so I was able to watch the Sox game for a bit, which definitely raised my mood. And then I lost it. So I was luckily enough they lost it right in time for them to go on another losing streak. But outside of sports, it was pretty run of the mill. A little couple Cape weekends, couple vacations in and there, but nothing too crazy.
Ben, I know you closed on a second home for you and your family. How's that going?
Uh, Good. A lot of work so far. Props to the wife for putting in the effort and the sweat equity and the elbow grease and all that. She was up there for a few days, getting things ready to go. We have renters the week of August 2nd, so just doing some prep work. I'm just trying to get everything rocking and rolling. So yes, we got that. Um, Other than that, not too much. Work's getting into the spot of the summer where it's slow, and so I'll try to.
Sounds like the perfect time of the year where we could go again and I could kick your ass in golf again. That's what it sounds like to me.
I mean, I wouldn't. I mean, the last time there was definitely not an ass kicking. If I remember correctly, I think you won by one shot. I would hardly call that an ass kicking, and I'm pretty sure I took like a 17 on one hole.
But Ben had the opportunity to hit about a I don't know 10-foot putt to tie on 18, and he put it this way,
Yeah,
he does not have the
like
clutch
that.
gene so far.
He blew it. Classic.
All right, let's get into this. The Boston Red Sox, since we last talked, they went on a hell of a run against some mediocre teams. What was it? Colorado, the Nationals, one. Nope, those two, and then
The
they
Rays.
did sweep the Rays. 10-game win streak. They went into the
Yes.
All-Star break. They come out now. They're about to be, I think, starting soon. They have lost 3 of 4 so far against the Cubs and now the Phillies. Obviously, last night's game uh, was interesting. The night before was even more interesting of how they lost in recent days. What are your overall thoughts so far? Since the last time we talked, how are you feeling about this team? And really, what are your expectations so far heading into what will be I think it's 7 days. Is the deadline a week from today or a week from tomorrow?
Week from tomorrow. It's
Week from
31st.
All right,
tomorrow.
yeah, yep. All right, so
Yeah, it's a week
eight
from
eight
tomorrow.
days until the deadline. Zach, you could start us off.
Yeah, I think my expectations of the. I guess we'll start with the expectations of the deadline, and that really is because of the 10-game win streak. I don't think they're going to go out and get like a huge major splash, but they definitely have the pieces, to make a big move. I know reports today were saying that they don't really think they're going to be moving any of the outfielders. They're probably going to keep all 4 of them: Duran, obviously Anthony, Rafaela, and Abreu. But I think if they go out and get a number 2 starter, they'll be in a good spot. You said yourself the 10-game win streak was pretty mediocre in terms of the teams they played and the talent that they played until they got to the Rays series. I think the way in which they won the Rays series was super encouraging, especially the walk-off, Rafaela home run. Game really didn't look all that great. I think that was the game that Hunter Dobbins went down with the torn ACL, if I remember correctly. So, love the way they fought back. Love the way that they were able to go into the break, with like a lot of momentum. And then, of course, they come out and faced, much, much better competition, albeit in the National League. So we won't have to worry about them coming back, and really facing us. But it certainly gave you a taste of what this team is and where we are in terms of talent and where we are in terms of probably not World Series contenders the way that everybody was saying over those 10 games. But especially with the third game of the Cubs series, that's exactly why Garrett Crochet is here. It would be a much different tune, much different conversation if we got swept by the Cubs and then are on the verge of being swept by the Phillies. He was able to at least stop the bleeding for a bit, come in, and then Bregman, of course, had that great 2-run home run, 3-run home run, whatever it was, to really break the game open. So definitely higher in terms of vibes now from where I was going into the 10-game win streak. But again, I'm tempering them in terms of where I think this team will actually go based on roster and based on just like overall talent that this team has.
Yeah, Ben.
So
Follow up on that.
I was definitely encouraged throughout the 10-game win streak. I mean, to win 10 in a row, I understand, 6 of those 10 games were against, bottom dwellers, with the Rockies being, the most dwelling of the bottom dwellers that we have in the league right now. But definitely some encouraging signs. Most notably, the bullpen gave up 0 earned runs in the Tampa Bay Rays series. So super encouraged with how the pitching has come around. And that's something that's more reliable in the long term in terms of being an encouraging sign and hopefully something of a foreshadowing of things to come. If you can pitch well, I feel like it's easier to overcome not overcome per se. I feel like it's easier to overcome a bad offensive day when you have consistent innings out of your starters. Crochet goes, he has his first ever complete game shutout was part of this. And yeah, I mean, again, just, super encouraged with how they played. They were the team that was losing these 1-run games earlier in the season. They won, which I have the schedule in front of me. So obviously they pretty much blew out the Nationals and the Rockies. They won. Let's see, they took 2 out of the 3 games against the Nationals. They scored double-digit runs with 11-2 and then 10-3 in the first 2 games, and then they take care of Colorado 9-3 and then back-to-back 10-2 games. So obviously the offense did what they were supposed to do against mediocre pitching, but then the Rays come to town and they win. They sweep the series. The first 3 games being 1-run games. So obviously the pitching's been really, really great. Like Zach said, good to have Crochet in that Cubs series to avoid the sweep. Bregman breaks it open late with the 3-run home run pinch hit in the 8th inning, I believe it was. And for sure, stiff competition coming out of the break. They've got first pitch against the Phillies, trying to avoid the sweep tonight. Here in about 25 minutes. And then got an off day Thursday. The Dodgers coming to town for 3. Big series, obviously. And then at Minnesota, who, at the moment is a team, kind of scrapping along. They might be in it down the stretch for a wild card spot. I think they're currently like 3 games under 500, but definitely a team that you should take care of business against. And then you kind of roll into August where you've got a mixture of games that will be big down the stretch, as well as games against teams that hopefully you can take care of business against. They've got a 6-game homestand to start the month, 3 against the Astros and then 3 against the Royals. The Royals, similar to the Twins, could very well be battling a little bit down the stretch. The Astros are a division-leading team. So, we'll see. That's obviously post All-Star break. So going into the All-Star break, there's been reports that are coming out that basically say the Red Sox aren't going to, at the moment have no inclination to make any big time splashy moves. It's a little disappointing. I know that they've lost 4 out of 5 out of the All-Star break, and probably a poorly timed All-Star break if there ever was one. You win 10 in a row and you're rolling. So kind of a bad time to to put a halt in the schedule. But we'll see what happens over the next week. But looks like they're not going to be doing a ton to make any big time splashy moves. Whether it's a Joe Ryan, probably not going to happen. There was some brown checkmark type people who were tossing out ideas that maybe the Red Sox were to, reach out to the Nationals and try to swing a deal for somebody like a Mackenzie Gore, but that pretty much got shot down really quickly because the Nationals basically said they're not trading any of their young, controllable talent, which would make sense. So I'm not really sure that, it doesn't feel like at 8 days out at this point that there's a ton of big name guys on the market. You can never have too much pitching. Would love for them to add, a rotational piece to help out with the depth. Again, the pitching's been much, much better lately, but you can never have enough pitching. Dobbins is now done for the year with the torn ACL. So it's, be helpful to get a depth piece there. And then obviously if there's a guy available to acquire via trade, then, as far as bat goes, fine. But, unless you're going out and getting somebody who would, be a legitimate upgrade at, say, first base, I don't really see them doing much in terms of adding to the offense. I feel like they feel fine with where they're at. So I think if they're going to do anything, you'll see a moderate move to add a rotational arm. But outside of that, I don't think they're going to do a ton. I would like them to do probably more than what they'll end up doing, but it kind of feels like we're in for another similar deadline where they're not going to extend themselves for anybody, especially because it doesn't seem like a ton of guys are available. So maybe, little bit of buy, a little bit of sell, we'll see. But, I'd like for them to invest more in the possibility of making a run this season versus, sitting on the fence and doing, a little bit of both and not really doing much to bolster the team moving forward.
Yeah, I mean they're obviously in an interesting spot, like when it comes to the standings. I mean they're in a better spot than they were in prior years. So logic tells us that they kind of almost have to be buyers, more than previous years. It will be interesting to see. I don't necessarily see a ton of players on the market that we would qualify as like a big splash, like a Joe Ryan. If he's available, obviously I would like for them to go and get him. A name that I do really like out there is Ryan O'Hearn from Baltimore. He's a guy that could come in and fill in at first base, be a right-handed bat that is hitting the ball very well. There was a joke. He's married to this girl that since the day he married her, like his entire career has like completely transformed. It's like the numbers are ridiculous. But either way, get him here. He's a bat that seems to be helping out Baltimore a lot, even though their young guys are clearly not really living up to expectations there. And then in the rotation, it's tough to look around and say, like, pinpoint in a specific teams that are going to be sellers right now. I was hoping that they would be aggressive in how they approach the deadline in terms of maybe getting a deal done early. The problem with that is there is a ton of teams that the next week or so is going to really decide their deadline. Ben, like you mentioned, like the Twins and KC are both 4 games out. At the moment, my guess is both of them sell, just because they're not even in the top 3 out of the race, right? You got Tampa, Texas, and Cleveland all ahead of them. Is Texas going to be a buyer or seller? Is a guy like Nathan Eovaldi going to be available? If he's available, all of a sudden that's a name that I don't know. Would you qualify Eovaldi as like a big splash?
No,
but it'll make a big impact. So I guess depends on what you look for.
Yeah, like big splash in terms of, I mean, the name Joe Ryan gets tossed around, right? Because he just turned 29, and he's got, I think, if they were to move him, he would have 2 more years on top of this one of control before he becomes a free agent. And the tough part is that, his days in Minnesota are in all likelihood numbered. Like, I would imagine that, say they don't end up moving him and he hits free agency, going into the season where he's 31, but will turn 32 midway through. Like, I highly doubt Minnesota throws the type of contract at him that
I think
somebody
he's
else
going to get
would want.
traded. It's just a matter of when. Is it
Yeah.
now? Is it is it in the offseason? Is it next deadline? They're not in a rush. That's the thing. Like, they have.
It's
There's
it's
not
not like he's a free agent in 5 months.
exactly.
He's a free.
Exactly.
So they
One
don't
name that I
really.
heard sprinkled out there was Jose Soriano from LA. He's a guy that is, he's 26. I think he's got a couple more years of control. 3.83 ERA right now, and with the Angels, is he a big name guy? No. Is he pitching pretty well? Yes. The question with that is, like, where does he slide in? Are you replacing a guy like Fitz, who really, since he's been here, has been a mid 3 ERA guy, right? I think his ERA is in like the 3.7s, 3.8s right now. Ooh, excuse me. Since he made his debut last year. Are you guys looking in terms of the rotation, like it's got to be a big piece, or don't bother in the rotation? Or are you open to that guy that's maybe a 3 or a 4 in the rotation?
Not for a 3 or a 4. I think, probably mostly just because I'm expecting, them to not necessarily break the bank in a similar way that they did for Crochet. I don't, I can't see Breslow opening up the prospects, for that type of a haul. So I'm almost tempering my expectations. Now, of course, if they get a Joe Ryan, for example, I'll be over the moon. But I'm kind of expecting them just to do more of that 3 to 4 mid rotation type of guy. Really, for no other reason. It's outside of if Fitz, gets hurt for whatever reason, has to miss a start. Same thing with Bayo, Buehler, Giolito, especially if those last two start to kind of tail off the way that Buehler certainly has, looked, and Giolito, at least last time he pitched, 2023, can certainly look. So I would think it would be more of like a rotational piece that could slot in like almost like in, not relief, because that's the wrong way to say it, but like almost like in replacement, I guess, of someone who goes down. And then, of course, if you want to open up that 6-man rotation, which they talked about doing in the past, that certainly opens up the door for that as well. So, again, tempering expectations for a number 2, but certainly open to it, and then kind of preparing myself for like a mid 3-4 guy.
Yeah. So a name
Good.
that I'll throw out there, just because I saw Milliken tweet this earlier, is a guy that the Red Sox were kind of kicking the tires on and sniffing around on availability, was Dylan Cease, who's having a okay season. If you look at the numbers, it would indicate that he's probably been a little bit more unlucky than he is. Like, if you look at the numbers, I would say unlucky more so than bad. So he's below 500 at 3-9. In 20 starts, he's got 108 and 2/3 innings on 139 strikeouts. The K per 9 as of right now would be second best of his career. His walks per 9 would be almost a career high. Like, all the numbers there are kind of relatively in the ballpark of where he's been for his entire career. The one big difference, he has a 4.64 ERA, but a 3.49 FIP. So, this feels like there's a little bit of some unluckiness when it comes to that. So maybe that corrects itself over the second half. But again, he's a super durable guy. He broke in with the White Sox in 2019 with 14 starts. He was going to become a full-time starter in 2020. Obviously, that's the COVID year. But he has made at least 32 starts in every season for 4 consecutive seasons. And barring an injury, he's on his way to doing it again. He's made 20 starts so far this year. So, he feels like a guy that, it's, maybe on the radar, especially because the Padres have been linked to needing outfield help, and Duran has been discussed on the trade block for what feels like forever now. So he might be a guy you could go get, and he kind of fits that mold of a a depth guy who can fill in. Like obviously he becomes a guy that slots into the rotation, and he at least in the early going, he kind of bumps, Dick Fitz as like the odd guy out, where if somebody needs if somebody's, dealing with something, Fitz can slot in and be a spot starter if necessary. If they end up with a double header type of situation, he can be that 27th man called up out of AAA. Like obviously he's got options left, so maybe you send him back down. But my hope is that they actually do make a move for a Dylan Cease type guy. Hopefully it's not a situation where they go, well, Tanner Houck is on a rehab assignment, so he's basically addition without actually giving up anything. And like at this point, I'm kind of mostly out on Tanner Houck.
He's not even on a rehab
Yeah,
assignment
I
anymore.
think they're shutting him down for the year, aren't they?
No, his rehab expired, so they've essentially just like put him to the side right now.
Yeah, he had like a setback too, though.
He's basically like in AAA. So, I just hope it's not one of those things where they look at it and go, well, like Tanner Houck is there and Dick Fitz is here, and maybe Peyton Tolley, like there's some scuttlebutt that Peyton Tolley might pitch this year at the big league level, that he might just skip AAA altogether. Which, I mean, who really knows? But like, I just don't want to see a situation where they look at it and go, well, we've got Houck and Fitz and Tolley in the farm. Well, not in the farm necessarily, right? Like, Fitz is up with the big league club. Yeah. Like, I would rather than be like, okay, like, what's it going to cost to go get a guy like Dylan Cease? Like, probably not a ton. And I'm not saying it has to be Dylan Cease. But if you could swing a deal where, you move Jarren Duran, and that essentially makes your outfield consistently Rafaela, Roman Anthony, and Willie Abreu, or whatever. Maybe you move Willie Abreu instead of Jarren Duran, and then you figure things out, like whatever. But I would like them to do that, and then now you have the flexibility in the rotation to where Fitz really only comes in because somebody else either needs a day off, or somebody gets hurt and has to miss a couple of turns through the rotation, or they get sick, or whatever the reason might be, as opposed to just looking at the roster and going, well, we've got Houck and Fitz, and then maybe Peyton Tolley can be a guy we can call up. Like, I'd rather them actually go.
They shouldn't be relying on guys like Tolley.
No, they shouldn't. It would be very Red Sox move-esque to go say, oh, they did this with Chris Sale. Oh, we have, guys in the system are coming back. But it's a good point about Tanner Houck. He's out indefinitely, whatever that means, because of a setback. He got pulled off his rehab assignment. But in terms of guys,
a team that makes a lot of sense for them is to match up with the Royals.
Yeah.
They got Michael Walker, who if they want to shed salary and unload, he's just been consistent for the last few years, but he's owed a good amount of money. They have 2 more years of control money that he's owed. I think it's like $32 million over the next 2 years. But he's been sitting at a 3.62 ERA over the last over the last few years. I mean, he was here a couple of years ago.
He was 11-2. It was nasty.
He's going the last 4 years. 3.32 ERA with the Sox, 3.22 with the Padres, 3.35, 3.62. So, like, the dude's just kind of been rock solid for them. You get Seth Lugo, who has a player option next year. He's almost certain to opt out, given how he has pitched. He's sitting there at a 2.95 ERA. He's been nothing short of fantastic for the Royals in terms of, like, a bet and a contract. And then there's obviously Chris Bubic, who is a really tough read because he's only got 1 more year of control after this. This is his breakout year. You know what I mean? So it'll be interesting to see how much teams trust this version of him. But he's another guy that could, he's not on Joe Ryan's level, but in theory could be a pretty significant ad if they want to go down that road. But really, like, looking at those 3, and if you go in the order, Walker's probably the cheapest. Lugo will probably cost a good amount, but he should be seen as a rental. And a guy like Bubic is on probably a tier above. I mean, he's sitting at a 2.38 ERA. He's been nothing short of great. Is there any of those three that jump out to you? Like, put it this way, in terms of gauge the rough price and the players and their contracts, who would you be most on board with?
I mean, Seth Lugo, just for the fact that they were in on him last year, and I think it was last year, until the price, got a little bit too high for them in terms of salary. Finished like second or third in terms of the Cy Young.
They should have gave him I think he signed for $345. They should have given it to him.
There's no reason not to give him that. There's no reason not to give Michael Walker the same contract.
To be fair, I understood not giving Seth Lugo that deal. He had never been a full-time starter at that point. He was 31 and had never been a full-time starter.
2020 hindsight.
33 and never been a full-time
totally
starter.
2020 hindsight. But
yeah, so I understood that. I mean, the Royals took a little bit of a risk, and it's paid off tremendously. Granted, they're not 100%. Doing anything.
No,
but it's going to be valued performance to contract. It's been a great signing for them.
Yeah. So I would go with him just based on I think the Red Sox sort of interest in him in the past. And then just if you're asking me, Michael Walker, just because again another one the Red Sox had in the system didn't want to pay for whatever reason, and then he's gone out, as you said, Matt, and had just 2 or 3 great years since then. And then the third guy you said I'm not too familiar with. So in that order, it'd be Lugo, Walker, and then that third guy.
Yeah,
so I mean, that third guy is.
I think it's unrealistic that that Kris Bubic would get traded.
He's definitely the least likely, but he only has 1 more year of control. So if there's going to be a time to move him, it's probably now, especially because he's peaking at his value pretty close to it.
Yeah, true. But depending on how things go over, the next, I would say 4 to 6 days is really going to dictate what the Royals decide to do. And so,
it could be a Houston type deal where we're playing Kansas City when the trade happens.
Yeah, right. And they just send Kris Bubic across the field like we did with Christian Vasquez.
Yeah.
I mean, because he still has 1 more year of control, that's why if this was his last year of control, I'd say it's way more realistic that they move him, just because again, his value is peaking really, really high. So I mean, he's the guy that intrigues me the most. He's the youngest of the 3 at 27. Walker's 33, Lugo's 35. I think that, I would say the tough part with Bubic is he is 16 1/3 innings away from surpassing his career high. So the one concern you have with him is how does he hold up over the second half of the season. You've seen that with other guys like Tanner Houck. As soon as he blew past his innings cap, not cap, you know what I mean, his career high in innings last year, he just completely fell off because he was just tired at that point. Never thrown that many innings in his entire career. And guys tend to care about that stuff. I mean, you see Garrett Crochet decides, he's like, well, I'm not going to throw in the All-Star game. He's like, I'm already going to surpass my innings as it is, and I'd rather use my innings for the team and the games that matter. But I mean, I would lean Walker more than Seth Lugo. There's a durability history with Walker that you like. He doesn't throw a ton of innings every single season, but you can count on somewhere between 25 and 30 starts. He's not going to be. He doesn't strike out a ton of guys. He's a career 7.9 walks per strikeouts per 9 innings. But he doesn't really. He doesn't walk a ton of guys. Doesn't really get beat, it doesn't really get hit around a lot. So, and he had really good success with us. You guys brought it up in 2022. He, in 23 starts, he went 11-2, 127 1/3 innings. He had a 1.15 whip. A 1.115. So really good year. So that kind of makes sense. But, again, preference Bubic, but realistically, I would say Walker before Lugo. But either one of those guys, would kind of fit that mold as a mid-rotation guy that can help out and eat some innings and be good for you.
Lugo's I wouldn't be upset about Lugo. The thing is, he's opting out. He would be crazy to not opt out of his 1 year, $15 million deal because he can. A team will give him $360. Probably on the market this offseason, or at minimum, a bigger per year on a 1 or 2 year deal. And so he's a guy that, like, yeah, you'll probably have to give up a pretty good penny for, and he might leave. I'm kind of leaning more with you, Ben. It's like Buvick is interesting. I would have a lot of interest depending on the price, but Walker's a guy that I don't think will cost a ton because of the contract that he's owed. Not that it's like anything crazy given his production, but there are just not a lot of teams that are able and or willing, to take on a deal like that and take on money in future years. For the Sox, if they add a guy like Walker, okay, you go into this offseason now, right? And you have Crochet like installed as your 1. You have Bayo installed as, let's say, your 3. You have Walker installed as your 4. Now that goes and says, a guy like Giolito you could bring back, depending on how things play out with Bueller, like he could be back, but you have a rock solid 3 guys already in the mix. And that is really important because Bayo the way he's been pitching could be your 2, right? And if Walker's a mid-3 ERA guy, then that's pretty good for your 3. So, I'm for a guy like Walker because, like I said, I think he's owed. I want to say he's owed 18 this year or next year, 14 the year after, and then there's a player option or a team option. Yeah, right here. So he's owed 18 million cash this year, and then 14 in 2027, and then there's a $14 million club option. So in theory, like you have his control for another 3 years after that if he continues to pitch well. 2 years, 32 million isn't really anything crazy for a pitcher either, especially a guy that's giving you mid 3 ERA range. That's probably one of my favorite targets on the market for them, given the price, because I don't think it will cost a ton. Maybe you're looking at a top 15 prospect in the system and maybe like a top 30, like two mid-tier guys, 2 guys that are expendable in your prospect system, as long as you have a good idea of your system and you're not giving up guys you think that are underrated, obviously. You could go and move like a Cespedes and maybe that's it. Or 2 lower tier guys like a Blaze Jordan or something like that. I think it would work, and I think that would help this team now and in the coming years. Because, like I said, it gives them more stability in the rotation beyond the season, which is big. Because they, as much as we have Fitz, Dobbins is going to be out for at least half of next year. They'll still have holes after this year, right, with Giolito and Bueller. So I would like to see them. This would give some stability to that and help right now. So that, he's pretty high on my list going around the league.
It'd be great to go into next season with the very similar rotation that we have this year. I feel like every single year, with the exception of Bayo, it's been almost a full overhaul. So certainly it would be nice to have like some stability, as you said.
Yeah. If Walker, if Walker's there now, and then Fitz, maybe you could go in by the end of the season. You're like, all right, Fitz is like could be our number 5. Like we can go in and trust him to be our number 5 going into the season. All of a sudden, you're like, all right, well now we need ideally a 2. So it's Bayo and Walker as your 3-4. But like you could go like another 3 guy, or you know what I mean. So you're not hamstrung into that. And then, like Ben, you mentioned like a Peyton Tolley, who's assuming he doesn't get dealt, like you see where he works in and when he's ready.
Yeah. And then one thing to add to that, and I heard this. I was listening to the most recent Section 10 driving around today, and I loved this point that was brought up. It was kind of formulated. It was like a rhetorical question. Can you imagine where we would be? Like what conversation we'd be having right now if Breslow and ownership didn't extend Garrett Crochet when they did? Like, yes, he would be like, yes,
Oh,
he's
yeah.
here, right? Like, obviously, yes, he's here next season because I think if they say they didn't extend him, what did he have? 2 more years? Like, he would have been here in 26 and 27 before he actually hit free agency, I believe, or was it
done next? I think he was done
or
next
was it
year.
or was it
but
next year? But like, can you imagine like what his price tag would be if the Red Sox started the conversation today versus whatever it was?
It'd be
5
future
months?
prospects because we wouldn't keep him around.
Yeah, we'd be trading him, or
Exactly.
he'd be like, "You need to sign me for $300+ million."
Which would have ended up in prospects because John Henry wouldn't have done it. But I agree. That's such a huge thing, and that's kind of what we were talking about at the beginning of the year. Is like, get this guy signed as soon as you can because like his price tag is going to only go up from here. So
Yeah,
I couldn't agree more.
but
They were good. I mean, what's Scooble's looking at like 400 mil. So
Cool. Yeah.
That's a contract I don't envy.
No.
yeah, well, I mean, we'll see what
Detroit.
Detroit does, but yeah, rotation wise, there's obviously we don't have to get a ton into like the bullpen. There are guys all across the league that can be had in the bullpen.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like there's, I know a matchup with San Diego when we talk about Duran stuff. They have multiple bullpen pieces that they're pretty strong in the back end that they could let up. They could obviously use a backup catcher. Connor Wong might be the worst player on the planet this year. I think I might have more belief in Ben Durth going up to the plate right now than I would in Connor Wong.
I appreciate that because I'm pretty sure that I was like a career like 320 hitter in high school, which is very bad for the non-athletes that listen to this. I think in 2.5 years as a varsity starter, I think I had like 3 extra base hits.
Oh, so you were just a pitch it and
I was
dink it up the middle.
I was a number 9 hitting like singles guy. Although
you were the bloop part of Bloop and a Blast.
Yeah, although I will say I did have the one hit that every kid dreams about. I had a walk-off single in the bottom of the 7th to win a playoff game my junior year with the bases loaded. That's my one hitting claim to fame in high school was a walk-off hit in the playoffs.
I mean, that was your peak.
As a hitter, yes. I had other peaks as a pitcher.
What about in life?
Peak in life? I mean, I would have to say like married, kids, and owning 2 properties is
what a sap.
Like, I mean, to be fair, like think about it.
You're supposed to say.
Oh, I'm sorry. Hold on. Wait. No, I got it. One of 3 co-hosts on this podcast. That's peak life right there.
All right. Well, all right. Now you're just sucking up. You're supposed to say 2014 when Butler intercepted it. That was not peak life, but that was probably in terms of like an overall moment of like.
Were you alive in 2014?
Emotional swing.
Yes, I was 18.
I will say.
Wow.
I will say. That series of probably. I mean, how long do you think in real life time, like not game time, but real time, do you think we went from Jermaine Kearse ridiculous catch to Butler interception? Like 3 minutes?
It had to be like, yeah.
Like
probably 5 to 7.
But like no more than, but yeah. So, okay. So that roughly that 5 minutes felt like an hour, first of all.
Mm-hmm.
But I, as a fan of any team, specifically Patriots and Red Sox, I have never gone in such a wider swing of emotions over that short a period of time in my entire life. Because obviously 2014, they still, Brady still hadn't won a 4th ring. And the last memory we had was, well, I should say multiple memories, but you had
Walker dropping it.
Well, I was going to say you had the David Tyree helmet catch in 2007. And then you had the like insane, like Manning just off his back foot throws it 40 yards downfield and just drops it into the one spot. In 2011, the Mario Manningham catch, which like obviously the David Tyree catch is way crazier, but like the placement of the ball in the 2011 Super Bowl,
the best
like then you have
I've
that,
ever seen.
And then
and I hate giving that Manning credit.
A top 5 throw that I've probably seen as a
I've
fan.
ever seen. Perfect throw.
Especially given the moment. Yeah.
Yeah.
And then of course there's the Welker drop that would have sealed the game, right?
Not
Like
to mention,
that sequence of events.
not to mention the Giants had 4 fumbles that game, and we didn't recover one of them. That would have helped.
I did
maybe
not.
getting.
I did not remember that.
Yeah, they kept talking about it on the broadcast. I don't know how I remember that, but I remember being very disappointed then.
I try to black out both of those games because, I mean, granted, like the 07 Giants were a better team than I think the 11 Giants.
Yeah, our defense was just so bad in 2011.
But like the Patriots 2011 team was, I mean, obviously, like this goes without saying, the 2011 team was like doesn't hold the 07 team's jockstrap, right? But like in 2014, like going from like their Jermaine Kearse like freakazoid catch that sets him up on the 1 yard line to then 2 plays later the Malcolm Butler interception, like that, what, like such a wide range of emotions of like utter depressed, like I can't believe I'm watching this happen again with this freak catch.
We just won the Super Bowl.
And then like the Malcolm Butler picks it off, and I'm like, yeah, just total and just like it was utter chaos at my house. That was that.
My roommate cried. Like not like shed a tear, like sobbed.
I just got into my underwear and jumped in a pile of snow.
When I was
like, Nick, you got to stop doing that.
So wait a minute. Does this mean that before that play you didn't have underwear on? You just dropped trowel?
No, I say stripped down to my underwear.
Oh, all I heard was that you.
I put on underwear and then.
Wait a minute, you gotta go put on some.
He's like,
it was in that moment. It was the strongest push of joy.
I have to go hide this rock hard boner and jump in the sand.
Oh, that's good. Kyle Schwarber, 2-run home run. Great start. Anyways,
I'm watching it on my TV, and I think you're ahead of me.
Yeah, would have been nice to pay him less than $20 million a year, and he's only
thanks, Time.
Is fucking hit tanks. But
thanks, Time. You had to pay.
It's a good transition though, Time, to the New England Patriots. There's not really a ton to talk about, but training camp started today. I think Drake May went 11 for 12. The offensive line supposedly looked rough, which, I mean, what isn't exactly shocking. It's, the defense always has advantages in early training camp and stuff like that. But, what are your early? Oh, good God, Bryce Harper home run. This is going wonderful.
Dude, you're way ahead of me, bro. What is this?
I get notifications. I have the Apple Sports, so it's like 30 seconds ahead.
I'm literally watching it on ESPN.com as we're doing this. But, he just says first pitch. He tags it. That's perfect.
Oh,
anyways,
lame.
Anyways,
I was just trying to launch the Nesson 360 app, and it's an ESPN exclusive, which is nice because I can stream it on ESPN.
Yeah, where do you get that Nesson app?
The Google Play Store is where I downloaded it from.
No, do you use my login for that?
No, I do not. Nope.
Okay.
94 down the dick to Bryce Harper.
Yes, you do.
Third row.
I don't know what you're talking about. I don't know what you're talking about, Matt.
Yeah, you jackass. Because you said you're supposed to owe me a round of golf this year. Speaking of that.
Yes, I am. I still owe you a round of golf.
Anyways, the New England Patriots. What are your early thoughts? I mean, like I said, there's not a ton that's happened, but what are your early thoughts heading into training camp and how you feeling right now about the team?
So early thoughts, it's very encouraging that Stephon Diggs got full medical clearance. We had long believed that and had heard and read stories that he was tracking and trending towards being ready for week 1, but especially where, you're talking about a torn ACL, you never know if there's any setbacks or if there's a slow recovery process. So super encouraging to see that he's got full medical clearance and that he can go through a full camp. And I'm sure that they're going to slow walk it to a degree. Like he's not going to be out there on the 11-on-11 and 7-on-7 drills at 100% running, full routes in those cases. I think they, especially today, I think they'd be stupid this early to just be like, all right, like you have full medical clearance, you can 100% just go. Right. And obviously they're way more in tune with his recovery and how he's feeling on a day-to-day basis than we are. But, I would imagine that they're not going to put a ton of stress on him at this point. It is really nice because we talk about next Thursday being the MLB trade deadline. It is also opening night for NFL preseason football. The Hall of Fame game is Thursday, the 31st of July. Don't ask me who's playing because I actually couldn't tell you. It's a game that I'll watch for about 15 minutes because I'll get a few minutes of like actual talented players before, the Billy Bobs and the John Smiths come onto the field because they don't care about that game.
Yeah, it's a glorified, joint practice, but it's still fun to watch.
Yeah. And so, beyond the Stephon Diggs, thing, I'm really excited to see the rookies. Seeing, the clips from Mike Reese on X, and other Patriots guys, but, Mike Reese is the one posting the majority of them. Showed a couple of routes from Kyle Williams. I know it's really hard to say what to expect from them because historically speaking, I would say, well, rookies don't play a ton under Bill, and rookies were kind of, not that we had really exciting rookies under Gerard Mayo. Aside from Drake May, but they didn't really have much of a choice. Like Drake May was going to play regardless. They don't really tend to just throw rookies to the fire and say, like, yeah, you're a rookie, but like figure it out. We don't typically do that to them. But given how they approach the draft and just the makeup of the roster, I'm excited to see how Kyle Williams fits into this offense. I'm excited to see how Travion Henderson fits into this offense. I'm encouraged to really see how camp unfolds. If Drake May makes that second year jump like we hoped Mac Jones did, what we had hoped Mac Jones would, he didn't actually do it. Then, I know Phil Perry, Matt, we were talking about this earlier today. Phil Perry, now this was back when the schedule got released. He had said that, and this was even before, I think did the schedule come out before the draft or after the draft? It's after, correct?
It's mid-May.
Yeah. So, he basically said, he goes, it wouldn't shock me to see this team start 7-2. They don't really have a tough schedule. I really think that, I don't want to say the sky's the limit, because I don't see this team winning like 12, 13, 14.
Could you imagine the hype if the team starts 7-2?
Commanders.
I think a million and a half Patriots fans would just walk around with a massive erection.
Oh man!
Everywhere they go.
I know we were spoiled for 2 decades, but
but these last 6 years have been terrible. I'm ready to get back to it.
Well, what's nice though, right? Like we all talked about how, and I know that Bill made these mistakes later in his tenure with the Patriots than he did early on. He was the king for probably, he was the head coach of the Patriots for 23 years. So I would say for 18 or 19 of those 23 seasons, he was the king of getting rid of a guy 1 year too early versus holding on to him for 1 year too long. And again, like that happened later on. Obviously you can't do that with a guy like Tom Brady. But, that notwithstanding, we all felt that, when it was time and Bill and Brady were, either retiring or, moving on, whatever, we just felt that the Patriots, because they had done it for so long, would just have the next crop of guys to just continue and build on the 2 decades of dominance. Like obviously is it really been 6 years of mediocrity?
Mm-hmm.
That's
2020.
Well, yeah, you figure Mac Jones was 3 years.
2019 was Cam Newton.
No, 19 was Brady's last year.
19 was Brady's last season.
Horrific.
Oh yeah, 2020 was okay.
Because that was the COVID year with Cam Newton, and then Jones. Yeah, okay, yeah, it's crazy. And even 2019 wasn't that great. Like they were a 3 seed, and is that Rafael Devers?
Devers had a 3-run shot today too. Yeah.
Very odd placement considering we're talking about football. But no, it's exciting.
I didn't see what you were doing, Matt.
He picked up his he likes slow. So he had his.
I was like,
head,
I went,
and he slowly, yeah.
I thought you were watching highlights of like Sports Center or something because Devers 1 yard again today.
So no, if Drake makes that second year jump and can be, it can be for the Patriots kind of like what Jaden Daniels was for the Commanders last year. Good statistical guy, good leader, doesn't make a ton of mistakes. Like that was Drake May's one knock last year. There's a few too many mistakes last year. Granted, terrible roster, bad coaching situation. It's encouraging that, it feels different this year. Like we have a real coach in Mike Vrabel. Like we have real coordinators. And where I don't love Josh McDaniels because I feel like they just kind of went back to the well again. It's not like Josh McDaniels is a bad offensive coordinator. He's creative. He spent time learning like modern college offenses so that he could better prepare for his next OC job by studying like basically Drake May's class of QBs. Like, okay, like what makes these guys successful? What plays work? How can I adapt my playbook to the modern NFL quarterback, it's nice to see that he was doing that. But like it feels like we have a normal operation again, that it's not this piecemealed, let's just promise the head coaching job to a guy who's never been a head coach. And I know that I feel like we kind of all gave Vrabel Gerard Mayo a fair shot to prove that he was worthy of it. And he just wasn't, he wasn't
2 months.
Yeah, he just wasn't the right guy. And I'd like to see him be a good coach someday. And maybe he'll hopefully learn from this and be a good coach, but just wrong time, wrong situation for him. So it feels like we have a competent organization, a competent coaching staff, and actual talent, and a team that's willing to invest and build around Drake May. Like obviously you get, your first 4 or 5 draft picks were offensive guys. You get Will Campbell, Jared Wilson, Kyle Williams, Travion Henderson. I think it was just those 4 guys early, but they invested and filled holes, and I'm just excited to see how those guys come together and hopefully put together a competitive product week to week that we're probably not going to push the Bills for the division, but if we can be a 9 or 10 or even 11 win wild card team, I think that's you can't ask for much more than that.
Well, they got 4 guys in the draft that they actually had tape on, which was nice. Unlike Bill's usual UC Chattanooga and getting Tavon Wilson in the second round and Jordan Richards, like they actually had tape on players who contributed in big games. Obviously, Will Campbell, SEC, Travion Henderson, Ohio State, Georgia for Jared Wilson, those type of guys. Again, unlike Bill at the very end, where he just completely lost it. But I agree. I think we actually have a competent organization, a competent coaching staff, which is, first and foremost for me. I do agree. I think that, Josh McDaniels is his third stint here with the Patriots is certainly going to be one that he learns from. He doesn't have Tom Brady this time. So he has to now, work with Drake May and the receivers to understand a lingo that works, for everybody. And then, like the line stuff, I heard about that today. Zolak was talking about that on Zolak and Bertrand this morning. It felt a little bit more like more walkthrough stuff where like they counted them for sacks, but it was more like they just kind of did a run by of the quarterback, so hard to tell. But the most encouraging sign for me is obviously, Stephon Diggs is back to full health and fully cleared for full practice, despite what he says and despite his efforts to quell all the hype about him saying, "Oh yeah, just day to day." But the most encouraging sign for me is Drake May's and Kyle Williams' budding rapport. I talked about this last year, where all I really wanted to see Drake May do was find some sort of young receiver and connect with them. Thought it was going to be Jalen Polk. That guy can't play to save his life. So now, like, it's encouraging to see that Kyle Williams. I said it in OTAs, but now that he's up against Christian Gonzalez, he had a nice touchdown against him. We'll see what the defense does, but the defense is where the draft was spent mostly on the offense. The free agency was certainly spent on the defense. So all around encouraging signs.
Yeah, there's not. I mean, like you said from the start, there's not a lot to like talk about that we haven't talked about.
Yeah.
Ben, you kind of highlighted a little bit. One of the things that I am most excited to see is the wrinkles that McDaniels potentially can bring in with the year off and what he supposedly did, where he was, scouting a lot of college games, college coaches, trying to really revolutionize his offense that, for all intents and purposes, was bland by the time he was done here in New England. He obviously went to Las Vegas and had, well, it was a disaster overall, but the offenses were okay, nothing like great. So I'm really interested to see, one, how what he has personally changed, and two, how he can fit it into Drake May's strengths. Obviously, Drake May is not Tom Brady in terms of ability, but also style wise. May is a lot more mobile. He's a lot more athletic. He's
Matt, he's just a Mac Jones 2.0. He's a white quarterback that wears number 10. Clearly, he's just a Mac Jones 2.0. I don't know.
That's, oh God, I remember those comparisons prior to the draft. But yeah, I'm really interested to see how he can, really evolve the offense into May's strengths. The offensive line should be a work in progress, but a step forward this year. I'm really excited to see Henderson kind of really get some playing time. I think he's a guy that really might hit his peak in the NFL, and we haven't really seen anything close to it. So he's a guy that I'm really excited about. Obviously, we got the Kyle Williams talk, we got the Diggs talk. Defensively, I'm really interested to see this linebacker group.
Yeah.
I think it could be a pretty special group overall. Guys like
go silent to silent. Who do they have again? They have Landry.
They have Landry on one side. They have Spillane up the middle. They have Jack Gibbons now, who's going to be up the middle probably. And then they have, well, I guess you could put Chase on them on one side. It depends how they want to approach it. They could put Chase on the other outside linebacker. You could have a guy like Peppers on that spot. You could Mapu.
I feel like I guess they're moving Mapu to safety.
They're moving Mapu to safety. Yeah, I have the ESPN depth chart up.
I feel like I'm missing one person that I'm having a mind blank. I thought they were moving Mapu.
Mapu right now is listed as the third strong safety behind Jalen Hawkins and Duggar. But they have Harold.
Yeah, no. They're moving Mapu to linebacker.
Is that what they're doing?
Yeah, I was gonna say it was the opposite. They're moving him strictly to linebacker.
Okay, that makes more sense. Because then, they have Landry, Christian Ellis, Robert Spillane, and Anthony Jennings right now listed as starters, with Keon White, Jack Gibbons, Julian Tavai, and
that's who I was missing. Jennings.
Second.
Jennings will in theory be on the other side. I was like, I knew I'm missing someone.
I thought they signed like 3 like decent name linebackers. It's like outside of Landry and Spillane. I thought there was another guy. It was
Gibbons.
Based on Gibbons.
But Gibbons was kind of.
I think Jack Gibbons can be a really underrated signing. Like he was really good when he was healthy the last couple of years. Yeah. And he's a guy that can play kind of the interior. I think he could. You got Christian Ellis who played some decent ball, but I think Gibbons could eventually be that fourth linebacker across the middle, with Spillane and him being up the middle. And I think your run game with them two and Walker and obviously not Walker, Williams and Barmore back, like I think your run game can be significantly better. Obviously Landry is a pretty good run stopper as well. And then they brought in Tonga, who I think will be purely a run stuffing interior lineman as well. Their run game should be notably better this year.
Yeah. The interesting thing, looking at their depth chart, they list Milton Williams as their left side defensive end, and
there's a lot of questionable things. They have Craig Woodson.
It's because the ESPN has them in a 3-4.
Yeah.
which is more what but that's more or less what they run. They don't run a 4-3.
Well, they also have Barmore as the right defensive end.
Yeah, well, I mean, Barmore's he could realistically be either one. Like he's a little bit undersized up the middle, and he's a little bit oversized for an end.
I think you're more likely to have.
He's better up the middle.
I think you're more likely going to have. Well, they're going to play. I think a little bit more 4-3 than a 3-4. Because I think you'll have Barmore and Williams up the middle primarily. You'll have Landry on one side, and then you can mix in Jennings. You can mix in Chason. Obviously, we'll see what Brayton Swinson is, but that's what you'll probably have. And then in the linebacker position, you'll go Spillane, Ellis, Gibbons, Duggar, Peppers, Mapu. Like they'll mix in guys in the 3 spots after that.
Yeah, Patriots.com doesn't list an unofficial depth chart yet. So
yeah, I think you're more likely to see a 4-3. Again, they're going to mix and match. Like Keon White could be a guy that if he earns his time could be the guy across from Landry as well, right? You go White, Williams, Barmore, Landry, and then you go Jennings, Spillane, and whoever is playing the best at that point, whether it's Tavai, Gibbons, Chason, whoever it may be. We'll see. The point is they have some good options. And then in the secondary, you got Davis and Gonzalez leading the way. They're a little thin in the secondary in terms of like depth, in my opinion.
Depth,
yeah. They lack depth. I mean, obviously you've got Gonzalez on one side, but here's the thing, right? Like, and what you're not going to see on. Actually, no, it is here. Sorry. Yeah, like they do lack depth, but I feel like, and again,
they lack reliability in the secondary.
See, I don't
in depth because I think like Alex Austin is a guy that has played some solid ball, but like he's right now your cornerback 4. Like so, if one guy goes down, he's pushed into the. You know what I mean? They don't have like a veteran depth guy
Marcus Jones is probably that guy. Like Craig Woodson could move around a ton. But so they're starting 4 or 5 defensive backs because you figure right now, assuming they're healthy, it's Davis, Duggar, Peppers, Gonzalez, and then Marcus Jones is probably your 5th guy in the nickel. So like that's fine. And Marcus Jones is fine at the nickel position.
Yeah,
I know he's kind of a gadget guy, but he's quick enough that he could probably match up decently with most guys in a nickel position. But then your depth behind them is suspect, right? You've got Marcellus Dial, who was a 7th rounder undrafted guy last year, Alex Austin, okay. But then you've got you have wild cards with you don't know what you're going to get out of Craig Woodson because he's a rookie. But then you don't know what happens other than that. So, if one of those top 4 or 5 guys goes down, there's a massive question mark of who comes up off the bench to fill that spot.
Yeah. I wouldn't mind to see them like go out and sign another corner or another free safety. Not that there's going to be a ton available, but like just kind of looking at the market right now, like would it kill you to maybe go get even? I mean, Gilmore's still available. Not like he's pretty old, but he's been playing some decent ball.
He's a good veteran depth guy.
Whether it's like
in his career, you're calling him to be like, hey, like we want some veteran depth.
Russell Douglas, Kendall Fuller, James Bradbury are all available. Again, these are all like older guys that like, do you want to spend any type of notable money? No, but like, would it hurt to bring him in as a veteran guy in training camp to maybe be that like number 4, number 5?
Nothing wrong with that.
I think there's also the possibility that Alex Austin fights Marcus Jones for the interior spot. If you remember, we had Andrew Callahan on back early in the offseason, he mentioned Vrabel wants to be bigger on the inside at nickel. He was supposedly working there in the offseason, a little bit in mini camp and stuff like that. So that's a matchup I'm interested to see. And if that's the point, like if that's something that does kind of come to light, their need for a depth on the outside is even higher.
Yeah.
And a guy like Gilmore, like I don't know what Gilmore's goal is at this point, but like, you know what I mean? They could use some depth at that position.
Yeah, and a place that I kind of feel like a little bit of the opposite, but there's too many question marks to feel great about it. I'm gonna be keeping a close eye on the wide receiver battles throughout camp because they have a ton of. There's such a wide variety of things that could play out. Like so to me, right? Like Diggs is safe, Douglas is safe, Williams is safe. And like beyond that, like and probably Polk, but beyond that,
no, I wouldn't even say Polk is safe.
I'd say Booty's safer than Polk.
But who's safer than Polk?
Booty.
Yeah, maybe. But I feel like, and again, totally different regime. But I mean, how many chances did they give N'Keal Harry before they finally were like, dude, like you suck at football, bye. So
I mean you got to remember that was in part Belichick not wanting to admit he's wrong.
Fair.
Yeah.
Belichick was stubborn with stuff like that.
Yeah, but I feel like,
unfortunately,
like I'd be willing to give Polk a shot with a real offensive coordinator. And
I mean, he's going to have a chance. Well, you know what I mean? But my point is,
like if
he'll have a chance to earn a spot, but like I don't think that he's like safe because he was a second-round pick last year.
No, and if you go into Drake May's second year with one of his two most productive wide receivers last year on the chopping block in Keyshawn Booty, like I just think they're going to have a much harder time trying to sell his development if you're getting rid of his number one option from last year. Obviously, the number one option changes this year in place of a second-round pick because, again, kind of similar to Bill, you're afraid to admit you're wrong.
The bigger question is, what are they going to do when they trade for Terry McLaurin?
Booty will be involved in that trade. So we'll
maybe.
What's 84's name?
I mean, they should really. Oh yeah, we forgot about Bourne too. Yeah, I mean, I would say the only three safe are Williams, Diggs, and Douglas. The rest are all up for grabs. Minimum 3 will make it. Maybe 4, because we didn't even talk about Chisholm either or Baker.
No, true.
We'll see how it plays out.
7.
Yeah, and so there's always a chance that they could make a move for a guy like Terry McLaurin, who he's a no-show. He wants a big contract. I would imagine the Patriots would easily give him $390, maybe $420. And you can include you can include a guy like Bourne and Booty in that deal.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
15-degree windows, we got it for you. Come on over.
A guy like Bourne will help them now. A guy like Booty can obviously still help them now, but be a guy maybe a little bit longer term. And obviously you got to give a little bit more than that, but you could maybe send out 2 wide receivers their way, and maybe strike a deal there. But either way, Ben, you're right. I'm excited to see who kind of comes out of the crop there. They're guys like Polk and Baker. They don't have a fresh slate because of the new regime here, but like in a way that they do. Like if they come out and ball out, like not everything in the past is going to kind of go away, right? Polk comes out and he's performing well, and no one is really going to give a shit what he did last year as long as he improves.
Yeah, the tricky part too with like that next crop of guys, right? Like outside of Kyle Williams, the Keyshawn Booties, the Kendrick Bournes, the Jalen Polks, like those 3 guys. The tough part is that, like, what role do they play, right? Because you figure as it's currently constructed, the Patriots don't have that traditional outside, like, number 1 type wide receiver. And I'm not saying talent, but like the guy like a Justin Jefferson, T. Higgins, Jamar Chase, like the bigger bodied outside guys. Because like Stephon Diggs is a slightly oversized slot guy based on his skill set. Kyle Williams is a little bit of an undersized version of Stephon Diggs. He's a gadget, quick feet, good with his hands. For the most part, I know he had a handful of drops that made you go like, huh? But, great with the ball after the catch. Like Douglas, same thing. Like Douglas is your typical inside guy. Like Mac Hollins is basically again, not production wise, but he feels a lot like a Jacoby Myers. Like decent speed, can get open, finds a soft spot in the zone, and he's a reliable, like move the chains kind of guy. So it's like I feel like they have a ton of guys who play similar roles, like outside of Mac Hollins, right? Like, but like again, like Kendrick Bourne in his heyday, he was he's not a traditional outside guy. Like Booty kind of fits that mold, but he's not the build of a guy you would just put on the outside and say go beat corners down the field.
He doesn't have the speed.
Right. Yeah. It'll just be interesting to see like who fits into what role, because where they don't have certain guys pegged into certain spots, it'll just really boil down to, again, outside of the guys that we mentioned, it's really going to boil down to like who is putting in the effort at camp and practices, who's absorbing who's absorbing the playbook, and like who's actually producing when it's in the preseason. Granted, I understand preseason, it's kind of like spring training in baseball. Like there's a giant asterisk. You got to take it with a grain of salt, because especially the later on you get, like some of these guys are, especially on offense, are going up against guys who will they're going to be playing arena football, somewhere else in 6 months. But it's really going to come down to like who's putting in the effort and who's producing in camp. Like who is making the tough catch when it needs to happen, who's beating defenders across the middle. Like that's really what it's going to boil down to, because there's so many guys that offer the same skill set. It's really going to boil down to just who's the most productive of those guys versus,
who's the best.
Right. But again, it's like those guys aren't going to start over Diggs and Douglas.
So, no, they're gonna push on reliability and consistency at those spots. Yeah. They're not gonna push so much. I think they'll push more for that than like maybe upside, but guys that are reliable and consistent. And that's why a guy like Bourne, the only reason I think he has that chance is because he's a veteran guy that knows what he's doing out there. But at the same time, like, are you gonna keep him over a young guy like a Chisholm or a Polk and stuff like that when you're thinking about the future? I mean, I don't know. Big picture, I would like to see them move. I think they're gonna end up moving one or two of them.
Yeah, I would expect Bourne's, like, unless they make a trade, like unless they trade Kayshon Boutte for a guy that's not a wide receiver, like guys that to me are on the outside looking in: Kendrick Bourne, Javon Baker, and then there's three guys who I've never even heard of, so they're obviously on the outside looking in. They have one guy in their team whose name I can't even pronounce. It's Demir blank Umpsey. Like don't know. Like
he's an undrafted free agent guy. Yeah,
he's not making the team. But like you figure, like aside from those safe guys, and Chisholm kind of feels like he's more than 50% safe, only because of the money they gave him. They gave him a decent, like for an undrafted guy, they gave him a decent amount of guaranted money for an undrafted.
He's also a white slot receiver. So.
Yes, and we all know how Josh McDaniels loves his Caucasian 5'10", 200-pound slot receivers.
Yeah.
But yeah, I mean, I think it's really going to come down to who fits the system the best, and and who can be a guy that they can say, hey, Stephon Diggs is gassed because he's old AF. Like we need somebody we can count on, and like that's what it's going to come down to. Like nobody fits into a spot because there's nobody else behind him on the depth chart pushing him.
It's going to be a full-blown open competition, I guess. It really, in those final 3 or 4 spots, like you said, they're all got a pretty similar position. So, I mean, it's wide receiver, in my opinion. I'm really looking to see McDaniels and what his wrinkles can be in the offense. And then as a whole, the defense has got a lot of potential. We'll see. I'd like to see them in how the approach is going to be under Terrell Williams. He's back, by the way, which is good, but.
Yeah, another home run for Philly. It's 4-0.
Yeah. I don't even want to get into it, but all right. that's gonna wrap it up for this week. It was good to get back at this. We'll be back to our weekly schedule for the foreseeable future. Any final thoughts, final words, boys?
No, it's good to be back. We're getting into the meat of the summer. Red Sox games will hopefully matter for the next 2.5 months.
Hopefully longer.
Yeah. I meant more so for the regular season. They've it looks like they're heading towards being swept and being 1-5 out of the All-Star break, but they'll have an opportunity to try to right the ship.
Not good.
But then, Patriots training camp, their first preseason game, I think, is in like 2 weeks. I'll have to look at the exact date. It's usually the first Thursday in August. So, getting into the meat of the summer with the Pats and the Sox, and, hopefully there'll be.
You got Brady's statue game.
Brady's statue game is what, August 8th?
Yeah, that might be the first game.
That sounds about right.
Yeah. All right, Zach, any final thoughts?
No, as Ben said, good to be back. Only one last Red Sox take, I guess, is that we talked about the pitching and bullpen and everything else, but first base is a real need. Abraham Toro can't be a major league.
Ryan O'Hearn, baby.
Ryan O'Hearn is a good one. If you really want to make
you need to stop watching Steve Peralt on Fox News.
I don't watch Steve Peralt or Fox News. But no, first base is a real need. Get a real first baseman. Enough with the platooning. Romy Gonzalez is a nice player to have. Abraham Toro is falling off. And if you really want to make a splash, Christian Campbell should be made available. He is sucking in Worcester, and I think this team has ruined him mentally. So get what you can for him because.
Yeah, I mean, it will all depend on his value. We don't need to dive too deep into that, but if someone will give him a top 30 prospect type value, and I mean top 30 in the MLB, which is what he was before the season, then yeah, if the deal's right, I would consider it. But all right, that's going to do it for this week. Like I said, we'll be back to our weekly schedule. Until then, thanks for listening and goodbye.
Good night.
See ya.